This is a video about the phenomenon of mini awakening. Hello, this is Wake Up with a video about mini awakening. There is a curious phenomenon that happens to many people on the spiritual path. And this topic ties in very well to the last video about spiritual materialism. On the so-called spiritual path or path to awakening or enlightenment, whatever that may be, it is usual that people have so-called mystical experiences and other sort of experiences that are very similar to waking up or transitional waking up, temporary waking up. In spiral dynamics terms, this is when you transition from green to yellow and from yellow to turquoise and from turquoise to coral. But I don't want to speak about spiral dynamics right now, so I will call it mini awakening. There's this sort of experience, feeling, sensation that I am awake. That's why an acquaintance of mine is very tired of people who are claiming they are or have awakened, because it's almost never true. Awake means to be totally de-identified with your ego. You still have one, but you don't think anymore that this is you. All the time. Every waking moment, you know that your feelings and emotions and everything that's going on, and this person sitting there or standing or walking there is not you. And this awakening is not how you thought it would be. That's one of the surest signs that you're very surprised how this is actually panning out, how this is feeling, how the experience of this is. Well, if your awakening is exactly how someone else told you it would be, or how you read it in a book, then it is most likely fake. Then your ego is just faking it. It wants to stop you on your journey by pretending to wake up. As I said before, the ego doesn't want to die. That's the last thing it wants to do. So it will pull all kinds of tricks, all tricks out of the book, even unknown tricks, to avoid that. And the best and cleverest trick is to pretend you're already there. Then you don't have to go any further. And there is always a further. After mini awakening comes awakening. After awakening comes the mystical stuff with love and compassion. Some people go directly there, especially if it's a religious awakening. But all these stages are just traps where you can stay and think, wow, I got it. But you didn't get anything. After that, enlightenment can happen, and enlightenment is actually a very bad word. What happens is that the event horizon drops. You see behind the veil of reality and the dual framework. The illusion of duality falls away. And after that it still goes on. After that you even let go of enlightenment. That's also just a step where you can stay too long. You leave everything behind. That's what Yuji did, for example, leaving everything behind. He really wanted the truth, nothing else. And this is the path of the truth. If you want what you read in the books, if you want some fluffy flamingos, some feeling of peace and love, then take opium. It's easier. No, don't take opium. It's very addictive. But it will produce a similar effect. That's why so many people are addicted to it. But if you want the truth, no matter what, if you take the red pill, then anything can happen. And it's usually very different from what you expect. So the surest sign that you have some kind of mini awakening, or that you're stuck somewhere along the potential stages of the spiritual journey. I'm starting to dislike the word spiritual too. It's so misleading. It's not about spirits. So the easiest way to see if you're stuck somewhere is if a part of you thinks that you're better than someone else, that you're further along, that you're more developed, that you're more advanced, more awake, more enlightened, this is the ego talking. Because the enlightened mind doesn't talk at all. You go soft in your head because you don't use your mind muscle anymore. Another thing is that you don't insist on your points of view. If you still quarrel with others what awakening and enlightenment is, that your view is better and more true, then also it's probably a trap. Mini awakening is human adulthood. It is where human adulthood starts. And people who just became adult, who just became 18 or 20 or 21, they usually think, well, now that's it, now I'm adult. But they just started, they don't even know what adulthood is. And it's the same with mini awakening. If you're 40, you know more or less what adulthood is about. If you're 18, you don't. That's just an analogy. It doesn't mean that you can't be awake or enlightened with 18. But usually, you're pretty immature at 18. In contrast to being 40, 50, or 60. So in this analogy, being 40, 50, or 60 is being awake. And being 18 or 20 is the mini awakening because you just entered human adulthood, yeah? Or you just entered yellow or turquoise and you think, well, that's it. No. It's really just the first baby steps. You just learned how to walk. The sad thing about the story is once you went through all these stages by painful processes of letting go, in some ways everything seems just like before. As I said before, there are no choirs of angels singing, there's no blinding light, no halo, no superpowers. But you can see the truth. That's basically your only reward. You can see reality for what it really is. You can see the matrix. And you will never get bored again. Nor will you get excited. It's a very neutral state. But you can very well live with this neutrality. Because you don't have to convince anything anymore. And you don't have to appear or seem to be someone anymore that you're not. Well, mini awakeners, they're very proud of where they got. Because they followed some discipline for years or decades. Or they got some cities. And they're very proud of them. See what I can do? Huh? So mini awakening is very dangerous. Don't trust yourself. Any thought of grandeur is just the usual ego megalomania. Don't listen to it. Especially for emotional people, this is a very difficult step because they're very loath to let go of their emotions. Emotions is the most wonderful thing for emotional people. And although they do not admit it, negative emotions are just as good as positive emotions for them. They thrive on the drama. And a real awakening would mean that you would have to let go of your emotions. The negative and the positive ones. Awakening is not about emotions. It starts with neutrality. It's also not about beliefs or opinions or who's right or who's better or who's more advanced. It's just observing what is. Today, for example, at lunchtime, I wanted to pick up some lunch boxes, very good stuff, and I had to wait for 20 minutes. So I sat outside on a chair, staring at the street for 20 minutes, waiting for my lunch, and nothing happened in my mind. I was just watching. There were no thoughts, no emotions, no instincts, no comfort or discomfort, no hurry, no boredom. I could feel the hunger building up, the appetite, but so what? The sun came out, enjoyed the sun a little bit. I could feel that the air was partly cold and partly warm, and I had my cell phone stashed away. Didn't read anything, didn't listen to anything. I just stared into the street with nothing going on inside. Totally quiet. That's a description of what's going on in someone to whom awakening has happened. If you have a mini awakening, then your mind is very active. It's even more active than before because you're more sensitive. All kinds of sensitivities build up, and you're sensitive to, I don't know what, emotions of other people and cell phone radiations, bad vibes, whatever. The brutality and injustice of the world, who cares? And the funny thing is that many awakened people are so identified and so in love with their thoughts and emotions that they think when they finally meet someone to whom awakening or enlightenment has happened, they think they're depressed or something because they feel the lack of their emotions. And that scares the hell out of them because they do not want to go there. They feel that's the way, but that's the last thing I want. Because suffering is better than dying. And they think that this is death, which it is in some way. So, if you saw yourself in this description of mini awakening, just don't take it seriously. Either go back to live your normal life how you lived before. It's better without mini awakening. Totally asleep is better than half awake. Or you go further into the awakening zone, but then things start to get really weird. And people will think you're crazy. Another sign that you're really awake is that you don't give a fuck about it, if you're awake or not. Well, with a mini awakening, you tend to be a missionary. So why am I talking about it, you might ask yourself, or might ask me. I just want to shine a light on aspects of awakening that almost no one else seems to shine a light on. And if that's helpful to one or two people, fine. And if that's not helpful to anyone, it's also fine with me. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you for watching. Thank you for joining me on Patreon, subscribing or sharing the video with your friends. And see you soon.